everybody. Welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I am your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 218. Hello, Happy New Year. We made it. We did it, Joe. We did it. It's 2023. I hope you all had a great end of 2022 and a great start to the new year. As you guys know, I was in Boston for 10 days in December, and that was a really great trip. It really was. I think what helps me to feel like good is if I make things more intentional. And I remember my previous trips back home to Boston, I wouldn't really have anything planned. I'll just be chilling at home at my parents' house. And it just wasn't the vibe. It was boring. It felt like, oh, can't wait till I get back to Houston. It felt like that in previous trips at times. And that's just because my time wasn't being used for anything like exciting or meaningful. It was just wake up, shower, turn on the TV, eat, repeat. And I know many of you do that, right? There's no shot to y'all, but for me, I need activity. I need more things to do. And while I was home, the first couple of days of my 10-day trip, I was still recording. I was recording Podmas. And so that was a great time in between dedicated to something that I love to do, and it made my time even more intentional and purposeful. But yeah, aside from that, if I didn't have anything planned, I didn't have anything planned. But anyway, this trip was different because not only was I podding while I was home, podding for Podmas of God Built This Podcast, I really just made time for people. Isn't that funny? I think that's just so fucking obvious, right? Why haven't you done that before? I don't know. I think before I just didn't really think about time the way that I do now. I feel like now my mindset about time has drastically shifted. I realize that time is really of the essence, and to soak up the time that you have with your loved ones. And so that's what I did. So I intentionally spent time with my nieces, with my cousins. And so that looked like me going over their homes, going to one of my niece's Christmas concert at her school. I went to church more so to really see everyone who my mom always tells me, oh, so-and said so-and-so, said so-and-so, flash so-and-so. And for my non-Haitian listeners, when I say said, that's short for sister, and that's Haitian Creole for sister as well. So Sister Rose prayed about you, and she wanted you to know, stuff like that. So it was nice to go to my home church and have them see me, right? And see them too, yes. But really, when you go home and you kind of go to the spaces where your parents are frequently at, it's really for them, right? It's really like a show off moment for them to show to their peers and have them see, oh, look, my daughter who's back from Houston for a few days, she's here, and look at her, she's doing well, right? It's more of a show me around, to toot your own horn respectfully, lovingly, in a way, and it was good for me too. I really enjoyed seeing all the faces that I've known for so many years growing up, and the faces that my mom would tell me about, whom took time out of their day to pray for me or to ask about me. So that was lovely. What else? I went over to my other brother's home his family home with his wife and kids and caught up with them, and I bought presents for the kids. Like my intention was to really be that auntie, and I came with presents for all of my nieces and nephews, and it was a really good time. I took my niece Brittany ice skating. It was a interesting experience because she fell like 5 times. I didn't fall, thankfully, and she didn't really enjoy it. But her time with me is priceless, right? So that's great. Vice versa, of course. What else? I took her to the mall, and she is going on 13 this year, and it's just like, wait, what? You was just born yesterday. Like, I literally remember seeing you come out of my sister's cooch. How are you almost 13, right? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. But seeing her just really in her pre-pubescent stage is wild. So taking her to the mall and having her like, oh, I like this. Like, she already has her own style, and just seeing that in person. What else? Oh my gosh, I caught up with an old friend of mine who, mind you, me and this girl, so we grew up together in the same church. Like, we grew up together. We were very close. And unfortunately, the passing of my cousin Joanna kind of drifted us apart. And what really hurt me at the time was I didn't hear from her at all. And she knew how close I was to Joanna, and she was close to her too. Like, we all, shared specific connections with each other. And so when I didn't hear from her during right after she passed, I was really taken aback. Like, wait, what? How come she didn't reach out? And I held that resentment for a little while, but I didn't share it with her because, like, who the fuck? I don't know. I just never was a type to be like, I'm mad at you because, like, what? I don't really think like that. So I just kind of held it to myself, and we just haven't spoken since that time. And that was in 2020. So yes, right now it's 2023. But when we rekindled was 2022. Yeah, last year, a couple of days ago, or a week or two ago at this point. And prior to that, like, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about on this podcast how I'm over holding on to grudges, right? Like, I'm over staying mad at you, right? I'm over holding you prisoner, or holding myself as a prisoner to whatever emotion that I'm still feeling from whatever specific event that happened. And, regardless if my feelings are valid, all these things, and I understand how all these things are true, but at some point, it just let that shit go. Let it go, move on, and it feels better. It's not for them, it's really for you. So it's not even about the whole, like, I forgive you type of thing. And yes, I do forgive her, but I just had to do it for myself. I just had to move on. And she was one of the few people who I just kind of held this, like, anger towards or something. Anyway, prior to us prior to us meeting again, I resulted that in my own self. And I was just like, you know what? Instead of me looking at it from, how come you didn't reach out to me? And yes, she very well should have. And we talked about that. But I also just realized that, you know what? Everyone deals with grief differently. And who the fuck am I to be like, you didn't deal with grief the way I wanted you to, and you should have, like, I just feel like that was unfair for me to hold her to that standard. And yeah, so I just came to that realization. And when I had that moment with myself, it was an aha moment. And I realized, hey, I'm giving her grace, or I'm giving people grace. Like, I don't want to be this, like, hold you to the fire type of person forever, and I want to move on. So while I was home in Boston, I decided, let me just reach out to her. Like, I've already forgave her internally. Like, I've already let this resentment or anger go. let me go ahead and just reach out to her. Like, we were really close. We had great conversations. We always connected on an ethereal, or is it ethereal? On an ethereal level. She's the type of mindset that is very similar to mine, if not is the same mindset. She doesn't think black and white, same as me. As you guys know, she's very much just like a nuanced free thinker, just non-conditioned. And the way that we grew up, you know, I've shared this many times on this podcast, just the way that we were raised, we were conditioned to believe a certain way and to behave a certain way, and this purity culture mindset, and, you know, marriage or else, God, Jesus Christ or else. This is the way to do life. You don't live outside of your parents' home. How dare you travel and really explore life? Like, we weren't conditioned, or we were conditioned to think like that. You know, we weren't conditioned to be free thinking and to live life the way that we see fit for ourselves. We had to live life according to the preference of others, in particular our parents. So anyway, she has the same mindset as me, and I just, like, you know what, I really miss that. I miss the friendship that we have, and the way that we are with each other is that we don't have to talk every single day, which is fine. We don't, like, have to always, like, be, hi, good morning, I just checking in. Like, we don't do that, all that extra shit, you know, as, like, girlfriends, you know, where we catch up every few weeks or every few months. And when we catch up, it's like just picking up a step from the other day, as if we spoke yesterday. And we just kind of dump all of our, it is not trauma, it's just like dump our days, our experiences, life lessons that we've realized. It's just beautiful whenever we come together. And I remember prior, because when I moved to Houston in 2018, when I will come home, I will always reach out to her, vice versa. And I will always reach out to her when I was home to see her and hang out and, like, just, like, chill, have, like, a one-on-one girl time moment. So we hung out. We still had a strong friendship, despite me living here in Houston and she's living in Boston. But it was until the passing of my cousin Joanna that our friendship just drifted, and it was just kind of weird. Anyway, so I reached out to her while I was in Boston. I was like, hey, I'm in town for a few days. I would love to see you, just checking in, or something like that. Yeah, I said, just checking in. I'm in town for a few days, just checking in. I hope all is well. And then her response was, oh my gosh, I would love to see you. And then we planned our meeting. So we went out to this indoor golfing spot in Boston that just recently opened, apparently, and it was a really cool activity, very fun. And we just started talking, you guys. It was just a beautiful moment. Like, not only did we talk about work, relationships, our mindset, all these things, it was just, yeah, we talked about all those. I said, not only, yeah, we talked about all those things. So we started off by talking about how this whole, like, quit your job epidemic was a scam, and that this whole great resignation movement that took place just this past couple of months, and as you guys know, I've taken you guys along with me throughout that journey for myself, and I realized, like, no, that's a fucking scam. You know. And yes, there are happy stories and happy tales of people who have quit without a secured job, and they were able to still survive, and not just survive but thrive, and now they're in a whole new career field and they're happier than ever. Okay, cool. But just like how social media is on, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, I'm not on Facebook, you know, any other platform, it's all a fucking lie. You know, we log on and we see the highlights. We see how things always work out. We see the flashy lights. We see the travel. We see the passports. We see the tickets. We see all these great things that makes you think, wow, everyone is doing well. Everyone is having the time of their life. And that's a fucking lie. It's a lie, man. So I remember watching so many YouTube videos prior to me deciding to let go and move on to a whole new career path. I was seeing a lot of videos of people saying, I quit and I didn't have a second job, and I quit and I have nothing in my account. And I love it. I don't regret it. And I will watch these videos back to back, and it's like just so many different people. So like men, women, black, white, Hispanic, any type of person was saying the same rhetoric. And I'm like, well, bitch, I'm gonna go ahead and resign too. And look, I think this goes to anyone. Like, as much as I come on here and talk about like, don't be a victim of the propaganda, you could be a victim. I was a victim of the propaganda. And look, I think everything happened for what it was supposed to happen. Meaning, I think I was supposed to leave that previous campus and be where I am currently, because that is where I can climb the ladder professionally and really just leave even more of a mark. I left a positive mark at my previous campus, and I could do just that and more, with more opportunities to rise, which is what I was looking for. But I could have that at my current campus. And I think because I think the order of events happened the way it was supposed to, because this is where I am. And this is where I wanted to be as far as professionally, in regards to having opportunities to rise the ladder. And so though I've been, and I talked about it in a previous episode, how like I've been resisting this change because there is so much to complain about. There is so much to complain about. But there is so much to be grateful for. And instead of having a closed fist, I'm going to open my hand. I'm going to open my hand and just walk through this transitional period and be fully embraced in it. Anyway, so we were talking about that, and she was sharing her same experience. Like, literally, our lives parallel each other. Our lives parallel each other to the point where it's kind of creepy. Like, it really makes me believe that, no, we're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be in each other's lives. We are supposed to be here together. So, anyway, so what else? So she was sharing her experience. She's in a whole different, so she's in, honestly, I can't. So she's like in sales, and she was in tech. Anyway, she has her own business. She's the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I think that's a proper acronym. Yeah, I think I said it right. Anyway, so she's in that field, and she has her own business with a few others in their partnership. And so she was telling me about just her parallel experience. And I was just so taken aback, like, dang, like we're really living the same experience, just in different fields, of course. And it was just so powerful to hear her own realization about the scam of the Great Resignation. And again, of course, there are people who it worked for, and then there are many of us who we don't see online because it doesn't look good, right? It doesn't look good to say, hey, I resigned and it didn't work and I'm reverted back to the field. So there's that. We talked about relations. Yo, I love that. You know, when you meet someone else who thinks about relationships in a nuanced gray area approach the way that you do, it really feels so relieving. You know, like I was telling her like the specifics of my relationship and how like regardless of how it may appear to society, I wouldn't decide to go with someone else just because it looks better to society. You know, and I was saying how there's this fulfillment unlike any other. Like I think about previous guys I've been with and previous just experiences that I've had, and how like the guy was like totally great on paper, quote unquote, and was like quote unquote all the way available, all these things, and yet they were just horrible human beings. Like I don't know how else to put it. You know, they either spoke to me disrespectfully, they either just was in and out my life, they barely cared about my day and listened, you know. And what I appreciate about my relationship is that there's this remembrance that he has, meaning I would mention something that I would like for us to do, right? A date idea, like, oh, I haven't seen Get Out. I have. This is an example. He'll make it a point like, oh, we could watch Get Out tonight. You know, like, and mind you, like I said this a week or two ago, a couple of days ago, and he would remember, like, and it's so, you know, me saying this out loud sounds dumb, right? It sounds like, okay, what? But that's the experience of someone who's dated goofballs, like straight goofy niggas, like, you know, little things like, oh man, I love to eat salmon. Oh my gosh, he cooked me some salmon. You know, as for like, different niggas before, it's just, anyway, like, look, the bar, I guess the bar is low, but look, and that was the epidemic of men prior to him. Like, that was the epidemic of men prior to him. Anyway, so I say all that to say, I think if someone is making you happy, regardless of how it may look like to others, to society at large, to a mass set of people, like, who the fuck cares, you know? And anyway, so I was talking to her about that, and she was just totally understanding, and she resulted it to how, and she made a very, I don't want to say every little detail, but like, she just made very good points. And she talked about like her business and how like people can't just easily say, like, if her business partners were to just leave the business, she'll be like, what do I need to do to make sure you're still in this business? And what that means is like, no, we have so many things tied together that I don't ever want you to leave, like, because it's more hellish to experience that and like, you know, why anyway. So, and I say all that to say, we get each other, and it was refreshing, it was relieving to have a conversation with someone, one who wasn't judgmental. And I do have friends in my life who aren't judgmental about, you know, things that I experience and all these things. So that's great. I do appreciate that. But this was to another level, because she not only didn't judge me, but she understood. Like, there was an understanding. There was like, I didn't have to convince her. I didn't have to give her an example. Like, it was, no, Maxine, I get it. I get it. Here's how I get it. Here's why I get it. Here's the comparisons that I'm making for you to understand that I even get it even more. Like, there was no convincing. It was just an immediate understood. And I don't know, it was really beautiful, you guys. I left that, mind you, we spent, I don't know, was it like 6 hours, you know, between the activity that we played, the drinks that we had, And we went to a different spot after I dropped off my dad's car. And like, it was just I felt so happy. Like, I felt like, yo, this is it. Like, this is a friendship that I definitely want to maintain. And, it's reciprocal. It's all these things. It's beautiful. It was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And that was like 2 days prior to me returning to Houston. So I felt like it was a beautiful end to my trip back home. And I'm just literally, oh, excuse me, hold on. Yeah, so I had a great time in Boston, and I really appreciated it. I love the ending of my trip. I love the rekindling of my friendship with that friend of mine. And I feel like, when you come across someone who thinks similarly to you and you're of the minority, hold on to those friendships, hold on to those relationships. It's all good. All right, let's move forward and talk about some of these topics. Avatar, I did not watch the movie. I haven't seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one. And I'm not going to see the third one. Honestly, it never intrigued me to watch blue people. That was never a thing of mine to explore. But this topic came up about the theme of this sequel and how there is a romanticism of colonization, meaning the blue people in this film are colonized by somebody. Mind you, I haven't watched this. I'm going to do my best to kind of break it down. They're colonized by another creature, maybe someone else who's not blue, and they are presenting this savior complex, this white savior. This savior saved me, right? If it wasn't because of colonization and because of these colonizers, I would be a barbarian and I would be trash and I wouldn't know civilization. I wouldn't know engineering skills. And many indigenous folk, the Native American ones, the typical ones that we know of, we do know that there are black people who were born in the land of America, right? So I'm not talking about them in specific to this backlash. I'm talking about the stereotypical indigenous people who we always see, the Native American who used to be called Indians, but they're not from India people. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Anyway, so they are protesting against this film because they are tired, quote, of hearing indigenous stories from a white perspective. We don't need Hollywood big budget movies. We could tell our own stories. They proclaim that this movie is definitely romanticizing colonization and making it out to seem like because of the colonizers, they wouldn't know how to be civilized. They wouldn't know how to keep up with their hygiene and, thank goodness to our colonizers. Now, I think though, I think the obvious response is, these are blue people. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you trying to make it about you? This is a totally fictional situation or, fictional set of characters. And, stop making it a big deal. Now, yes, that's an obvious response. These are blue people. These are characters. But the thing is, these characters, this plot stem from real life. They stem from experiences that are very similar to those who were colonized. And so naturally, people are going to take this as an opportunity to backlash, to speak up, to use their voice and tell you why you shouldn't watch this movie. Now, let me just give a quick synopsis of it. So, let's go back to the original film that was released in 2009. It's called Avatar: The Way of no, whatever. The original film is called Avatar. The new one is called Avatar: The Way of Water. So, just like the original film, this story follows a character named Navi. He is the species native to Pandora. So I'm assuming Pandora is the name of the land. In the original film, humans attempted to take over Pandora in order to access a valuable mineral. Now, this is a common, obvious way of events that take place whenever someone sees a land as valuable. They see it as, oh, wait, I want that, so I'm going to take that, right? Instead of just respecting the fact that this is not your land, you have no right to our resources and our valuable goods, you should not do this. So as a colonizer, of course, what are you going to do? Attack, kill, take control, destroy, rape the natives of that land. Jack Sully, who is a former Marine and a human from Earth, is rescued by Navi princess Neytiri, and the two eventually fall in love, with Sully remaining on Pandora. So remember, Sully is a human being from Earth, and Sully is rescued by Navi, who's not a human being, who's an avatar, and Navi is a princess. So Sully becomes a key figure in the Navi tribe. He helps drive off the humans trying to inhabit Pandora. In Avatar: The Way of the Water, Sully is the chief of the Omaticaya clan and once again must battle against humans for the sake of Pandora. So now it sounds like it's a good story, right? Oh my gosh, this human being who could have colonized us is actually defending us, is actually supporting us as we're being attacked by human beings who want our land. And so this looks like it's a good story. The flip to it, though, is it presents itself as, oh, this white savior, right? This human being who's a white guy, Jack Sully. What do you think, right? This human being, and because of this human being, he came on this land. You should thank him because he saved your land. So you are forever indebted to this man. And they romanticize it by having this human being, Sully, being in love with an avatar. So the film's underlying themes are open to interpretation, but many indigenous activists believe that Sully is a representation of a white savior and that the film romanticizes colonization. Look, it does. It does. It definitely does. I definitely see their points. I agree that it romanticizes it. I think there's just a lot of romanticization happening in so many different films and movies and shows. Like, this is one of many. Now, the director, James Cameron, he says that, look, this was not intended, of course, to make anyone feel like you should worship your white savior or whatever it is. But his intention wasn't that. So he says, I do understand the perspective of it seeming to be a representation of a white savior complex. I totally get that. I also see it as this is a blue movie. This is a movie about blue people, people who aren't real. Yet, art imitates life, life imitates art, like vice versa. And it's just one of those things where, sure, you could boycott. Sure, you can call it out for what you believe it to be. And then what? Right? And then what? Like, instead of like focusing about the themes of this movie that is dangerous to one's perspective about colonization, how about put more energy towards revitalizing Native American areas, right? How about retrieving your land? How about focusing your energy on creating or pushing for policies that can preserve native land? So yes, you could, what's the saying? You could chew gum and talk at the same time, which I just find to be rude, actually. I really don't like gum. I don't like when people chew gum around me. Don't speak to me while you're chewing gum. It's just so fucking rude. That's just how I was raised. Like, you just don't chew gum. Mind you, actually, my mom chewed gum a lot when I was younger. But never did she, like, I don't know. It just wasn't it was always improper. Like, you don't chew gum in church. You don't chew gum in school. And if you are chewing gum, you're on the streets. You're at the bus stop. Like, you're not really at a formal setting. Either way, I just don't like how some people chew gum. They chew it with you seeing what's in their mouth. You know how, like, you're eating other foods that you're allowed to swallow, and you don't get to really see what's in their mouth because you're swallowing it, right? Or it's being processed in a way that the tongue has already captured it under the tongue and all these things. But with gum, some of you guys don't know how to chew gum correctly. You're chewing it in a way that is just like you're a camel. And I just find it to be so disturbing. Like, why am I seeing the insides of your mouth? Why am I seeing the teeth marks in the gum that you're chewing? And it's even worse when kids are chewing gum. They're talking so loudly, they're laughing, they're yelling, they're screaming, and there's gum in their mouth that falls out of their mouth. Yo, it falls out of their mouth. And then, of course, they're not going to pick it up. They're going to just leave it there. And it's being stepped on, and now it's caught up under your shoe. I just hate gum. I fucking hate gum. So no, don't chew and talk at the same time. Don't chew it. Whatever the other equivalent saying for that, please do that instead. But don't chew and talk. Don't chew gum and talk at the same time. The point is, yes, you can be mad at the themes that's present in this movie. And you can also divert your energy towards more real life situations that's to the benefit of this community. So this whole like idea of like there's this boycott or petition being passed around to boycott people. Can you really tell movie theaters not to play it? I don't know, but there's a petition going around, and there's people like really taking so much energy and time to talk about it. I just feel like, sure, you could talk about it, fine, but like, what are you doing in like real life time right now that could really help the community that you're talking about? So like the 12 Native Americans talking about this, can y'all just the chiefs who are talking about this, can y'all just, I don't know, figure something else out that's more, I don't know, impactful to do? Okay, let's talk about this stupid ass case. You guys know I haven't really been talking about it. Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez case. I still think it's fishy. I know he is found guilty according to the court. And the rhetoric that I'm seeing from the people who were, quote unquote, on his side is now switching their tune because they're saying that we didn't know specifically what he was charged with. And that was done on purpose, right? I'm sure we could have definitely maybe Googled it. Maybe that's public information. But I think regardless of us knowing the specific charge, right, the overall conversation was about him shooting her and her saying without a doubt that he shot her. And because of the conflicting stories that has surrounded this case, said by the people involved, the people who witnessed, the people who participated, it didn't look as if what Megan Thee Stallion was saying was all the way truthful. So I just don't appreciate the people who's like, ha, he's in jail now. Now what do you have to say to all the people who was supporting Tory Lanez? Now what? Y'all awfully silent. It's like, what? Shut the fuck up. Like, let's start there. But I think Meg Thee Stallion hasn't been leaving a positive reputation for herself. And when you have people consistently saying how negative you are, how you've gotten people in trouble just off the whim, how the way that you're moving in Hollywood and these industry parties makes you look bad, I think that's something to note. It's not about shaming the victim, quote unquote, but like, if you're on camera on CBS, she was talking to Gayle King, talking about how she answered the question that Gayle King asked her if she and Tory Lanez had a romantic relationship. She said no. She scoffed at that question. Like, no. Like, she would never. When it's clear that she has, right? Like, prior to that moment, there was video of them flirting, her twerking on him. There were reports and actual witnesses who said, no, they were in a relationship. They had, whether it was a monogamous relationship or not, they had romantic intertwines, okay, to say the least. So to scoff and lie as if you can't even imagine being with someone like Tory, like you're too good for this short ass nigga. Like, okay, maybe you are too good for this short ass guy, but the point is, you still gave him some punani. You still gave him some. So the lying on that and just the way that she moved throughout the industry amongst different parties made her word lack credibility. And I think that's the real conversation here. Like, naturally, if you haven't really been telling me the truth, why would I immediately believe you? Not immediately, right? It's just like the boy who cried wolf, right? You've been saying you've been crying wolf for so long, and then when it finally happened, now you want me to believe you? It's kind of hard to do so, you know? So again, I just think the events of that night was definitely suspicious. And I personally don't think it was an intentional shot. I think she was shot nonetheless. I mean, and then I think she also stepped on glass that same moment. Some people are saying they believe Kelsey was the one who shot her and not Tory. Kelsey, who was her former best friend. Regardless, I don't know. I think there's just some information that was purposely left out of this case. And I just find it to be very interesting how this all took place during Christmas. And yes, it's a pagan holiday. I get that. Yeah. But I think everything was intentional for us all to tune in. And seeing the divide yet again between black men and black women, I just think it was all done by design. You have people so quick to just bash black men for wanting more information about this case because they were questioning the validity of Megan's account. And instead of just using your critical thinking skills, instead of just like allowing yourself to be inquisitive, people are so quick to be like, oh, niggas ain't shit, and that's why black men are the worst demographic ever. Like, it just continued that same rhetoric, that same divide between black men and black women. And I just feel like all this was done by design. I feel like there was an intention behind the timing of this case and the verdict being released during Christmas. Was it a day or two ago? Like, and you have to keep in mind that maybe this could have been a mistrial. Maybe it could have been a mistrial. But considering that people, of course, the jury wanted probably to just, look, I want to go home. Let's just chalk it up to guilty, and that's it. Had this been pushed to be solved in this month of January, maybe the verdict would have been different. So, look, I think everything was done by design. I think the events of that night is not all the way clear. And I think it's fine to have questioned and fine to have wondered if Megan was being all the way truthful. And being a woman questioning that shouldn't be seen as a pick me. I'm so sick of that damn. Can we leave that in 2022? Can we leave pick me in 2022? Like me siding, not even side, but me not being quick to believe whatever Meg Thee Stallion is saying is not saying I, don't fuck with her. I just feel like, hey, your word is looking kind of weak. So I'm going to question it. It's not about me shaming victims. It's just dumb. Anyway, so let me read this quote or this tweet. Trial where circumstances are not even taken into consideration. Everyone was drunk, violently fighting, reckless at fault. Witnesses taking immunity, lying, acting dumb, mocking, and yet at the end, all Tory fault, while everyone else can go back to rich life and not take any responsibility. I thought this was a powerful tweet. This was said by an account on Twitter named 1DDennis1. Okay? And basically what it's saying is you have everyone a part of this event who were all participating in reckless behavior. Everyone was equally fighting each other. Everyone was equally drunk or intoxicated, inebriated. Like, everyone was not in their sober mind and were not acting soberly. And yet, the blame is only put on one person, right? You have so many factors in line, and the account of the night, it's still foggy. Yet the blame, everyone just decided, let's just blame Tory. And now, I don't know the exact sentence. I heard the maximum is 22 years, but I don't know specifically of how long he will serve. He is also not a U.S. citizen. He's from Canada. So it's also reported that he may be deported to Canada. So you have all these number of things. And look, all of this could have been a show, right? Like, I'm also of that belief. Like, this all could have been a show, another play, right? Another Broadway performance. Like, I also believe that. Like, I also believe that he's not in jail. He's probably back in his LA home, and it was just a show. That's also where my mind goes. You guys know this. So, like, okay. I just don't like to get so emotionally involved in cases like this, or, just different events like this, because one, you have Hollywood just like lying to you, right? You have people said that, oh, I'm going to spend time in jail, and they're not. Like, no one's really going to jail. Or even if they're said to have been found guilty and they're walking in cuffs towards the jailhouse and the prison house, whatever it's called, they're not really in there. Like, you really believed, what's his name? The guy from Chicago, Smollett. Smollett. But that guy, you really believe he spent any time in jail, in prison, after he was finally found guilty for lying? I just think it was all a show, something to keep us entertained. You have the elite, the people in mask, however you want to look at it. But these people who put events together to create an agenda for us to divide within our own community. What really was a result of this case? It wasn't Tory being found guilty and being sentenced to prison. No, the result was more of a division between black men and black women. The result of finding ways to pick at black men and why black men never support or protect black women, and giving more push to the rhetoric of why black women should seek elsewhere for love and protection. And by elsewhere, I mean white men. When really, no, you shouldn't. Anyway, it was all a show. That's my perspective. Whatever. Okay, Sarah. Whatever will be, will be. Nick Cannon has admitted that, hey, I wore myself thin after having 12 children. He actually had another one, I just found out, with one of his children's mothers. Yeah, because more than one. And so God bless. Hey, welcome to this world, little Cannon. But he admit that he feels like he wore himself thin by having so many children. He doesn't say by having so many children by so many women. He doesn't say that. He just said by having so many children. So that's, interesting too. But what's interesting? I find it like people are so caught up with Cannon and his decision with his body and the decision of the women whom he have made his children's mothers. Like, I feel like, again, we're so worried about the wrong things. Like, if that is the choice as these consenting adults have made, then what is it to you? Right? I'm reading these comments about like, oh man, this is not how things should be done. Please don't follow suit. Don't do things like this. There should be like, people are so quick to be like, oh, we shouldn't judge someone's household, right? For so long prior to gay people being able to adopt children and gay people being able to marry each other, we were so fixated on, no, this is not how an American family should look like. It should be a mother and a father, right? And, yeah, so since then, that mindset has shifted, right? There is an acceptance of gay parents being parents of children, having children of their own, whether that's IVF, adoption, whatever the case is, right? There's more of an acceptance for that, right? So there's no judgment now for that household, right? But there's judgment for Nick Cannon, who is a consenting adult who is in a relationship or in agreement with these women to have a consenting co-parenting relationship at the very least. And people are so mad at, like, what? Like, it's just so weird now. Like, we're not mad. I'm not saying you have to be mad at gay parents. I'm just saying, like, we've come such a long way. We've come such a long way in accepting that now, right? That's a normal household. But yet we still shame a consenting adult who decided to have a baby with someone who already have several kids and is one of several mothers. Like, what is that? Like, why is that not, like, why can't we also respect that type of household? I just find it to be interesting. So there's that. Akon, oh my gosh, Akon is an African. Let's just start there. We all know he's African. I came across a tweet or a video, something. I got it from somebody. But someone said, just look at his name. Akon. I did not. No. And you know what? I think in my head, I was just thinking like a convict, right? Because he talked about him being locked up. They won't let me, that infamous song of his. And yet another view to look at his name is Akon, right? Short for con artist. And that's exactly what he is. A lot of Africans are con artists. I'm sorry. I've said it. Again, it's been a while since I talked about Africans. And I'm saying this in love. I'm just saying, like, it's some things that I've noticed, okay? Over the years. But anyway, Akon has said that he feels like there's nothing wrong with Nick having numerous children with multiple women. He says, quote, "That's how life is supposed to be." And look, I also feel like that's fine too. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not against that either. I feel like, again, in different cultures, outside of the American culture, I think the American culture is really the only culture that I could think of that professes this specific ideology of how a household should look like. Again, it was so much so for so long about your household needing to be a father and a mother and your kids and a dog and a house, right? And for so long, we were against having homosexual marriages and homosexual parents. But now that has been normalized and that's accepted. Now we're at a point where yet we're finding judgment against someone deciding to have children with someone who already has, like, does that make sense? I hope I'm articulating myself well on this point. But anyway, like, who really gives a fuck? But yeah, there's African cultures, there's Caribbean cultures, maybe even some Middle Eastern cultures. There's so many other cultures that have this type of look upon family. That's similar to how Nick Cannon is moving. Maybe these other cultures, they believe in spreading your seed, however that looks like, whether it looks like just with one partner or with several partners, like people get mad at even with Keke Wyatt, who is an R&B artist. You guys know her as, anyway, I can't think of her song right now, but she's an amazing voice. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do for you. Yeah, with Avant. She's had a couple of songs with Avant. Anyway, so she is a mother of like 12 kids. She pushed them all out herself. There's a couple different daddies. I think there's only 2 or 3 different daddies amongst all of them. But nonetheless, she's given birth 12 times, around there, maybe 8. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely more than 4. It's definitely more than 6. So at least 8 probably no more than 12. And she could still push out more if she wanted to. I think she recently just had a kid, and this kid is probably like 2 years old, 3 years old right now. The point is, you have someone, a mother, a woman, a consenting adult who wants to have more children, like she feels honored and blessed to be able to carry and deliver life over and over again. Yet she receives a lot of backlash from people like, oh, what's wrong with her? Why she keep having babies? Yeah, it's like, who the fuck are y'all? Like, stuff like that is just very interesting to me. Like, why do people care so much about what you do in your personal life? This brings me back to the beginning of this conversation, and I'm gonna close it out with this. Like, talking about rekindling with a friend of mine, and just being so relieved that she understands just the way that I move, and it wasn't an opportunity for me to try to convince her to understand. She just got it. It wasn't performative. It wasn't any of that. It was just beautiful. And I bring that up because I forgot what was the point. But the point is, I feel like, relationships, like, we have to like open our minds to different types of relationships, whether that's polyamory, polygamy, monogamy. Like, there's other types of relationships that doesn't have to be seen as good or bad or this one way. Like, if we're so open about men being women, right? If we're so open about cutting the genitalia off of kids, hey, maybe be okay with Nick Cannon spreading his seed and spreading it wide. Maybe be okay with unconventional relationships. As long as you have consenting adults, right? Of course. But like, I'm not saying, stuff like be with the kid. No. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to all the Podmas episodes, to God Built This podcast in general. And we back, baby. 2023, here we are. And I will check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This podcast with your host, Maxine. If you liked it, leave a review, share, and subscribe. God bless.